This is the tutorial for the gold foil gift card for Adobe InDesign, and this is the program I highly recommend that you use because this is a more advanced template and it's heavy on text. In fact, it's pretty much all text, and Photoshop just doesn't have the capability to really edit this template so that you get the best results when you're printing it with Moo. If you're using the Photoshop version, I actually think that you should use the gold text on solid color instead of using the solid gold, because Photoshop doesn't let you add outlines to text like we need to do in InDesign in order to make sure that our text gets printed clearly. So again, highly recommend Adobe InDesign. If you don't have it, you can go to the Adobe website, and if you go to adobe.com, going back to their homepage, and you need to click on, at the top, Creativity and Design, click on View All Products, and then scroll down to InDesign, and you can either buy the monthly subscription, which I believe is $19.99 a month, or you can download the free trial, and I think that's just maybe 7 days or less, but that's just long enough for you to use it to edit this gold foil template, and give it a try and see how you like it. And I really recommend that you use it for all of my templates, but if you're going to use it for any templates at all, it definitely needs to be for the gold foil template so you can get the best results. So going back into Adobe InDesign, a couple of features I want to show you. In InDesign, you can have multiple documents within one file. So if you're having, specifically for this, because I have multiple versions and different denominations for these gold foil gift cards, and then options for solid gold and gold text on a solid background, I can have all of these pages in one file, and you can just export them single pages at a time, because when you upload them, you're going to have to upload it as one page at a time to Moo. Excuse me. But when you're using like the magazine template, this is really handy to have all of your pages in one document, so you can go back and forth, and it really makes editing a lot easier. So another reason why I absolutely love Adobe InDesign. If we go to page 1 in your Pages panel, and if you don't have that open, you can find it under the Window menu. So to go to the top, click on Window and look for Pages. And if you're on a Mac, it's Command F12 for your keyboard shortcut. So on this page, we have our contact information, so your website and your phone number, and your logo. Right now I just have a placeholder logo on here, so go ahead and delete that. And if you have a vector version of your logo, something I always suggest everybody has, I go into Adobe Illustrator, which is where I created my logo. And I have a page set up that has all the variations and the different fonts and all the different colors and shades that I use for my logo. And again, my pattern, my little damask pattern that I used for certain things, especially on my gift cards, because I use that on the front side of my card. I want to grab one of my logos, so I have a version that has the text already in there, so in case I need to change it. For these particular cards, I may need to, because this font can get really, really tiny, but I'm going to click on it and I'm going to copy and paste it. So I'm going to go to Edit, to copy, or you hit Command C on your keyboard, and then I'm going to go back into Adobe InDesign, and I'm going to go to Edit, to Paste, and it's going to paste a vector version of my logo into Adobe InDesign. It's going to take a minute. My computer's running a little slow today, so just be patient. There we go. Alright, so now my logo is in here. It's already converted to outlines, so that's one step we won't need for my logo. I'm going to hold down my Shift key to increase the size of my logo. It's the same thing that you would do in Photoshop, where we're holding down the Shift key can constrain the proportions of anything that we're enlarging or reducing. And I'm making my logo just big enough to fit into the safe area right here. And my safe area is this pink line. Anything that goes outside of this area right here, I wouldn't go past the 1/4 inch mark right here. But I do have some text on the design itself, on the back side especially, where I do have text that goes over to the side. So I'm just going to click on one of these here so I can show you. And on the design, I do have text that goes over the side. Because it's going past this trim line, this part gets trimmed off. I like that feature where it kind of, the text goes off the side. You can still read it. You can see that it says gift card, but it's just a graphic element that I like, and it gives me the opportunity to make these fonts really, really big to ensure that they print really well. So going back into page 1, if you want to add a disclaimer to your card, this is something I didn't include in the first batch of templates that I created, but you can create one yourself. So what we're going to do is move this text up. So I'm selecting it with my move tool or selection tool in InDesign, but it looks just like the move tool in Photoshop. You click on that to select this text box, and I'm using my shift and up arrow key to move this up a little bit. Then I'm going to select the type tool, which looks just like the one in Photoshop, this little T, and I'm going to start, put my cursor right here where the left hand side of my safe area is, and click and drag it all the way over to the right side of the safe area, and I've created a text box. It's a very similar feature to Photoshop's text box. So what I'm going to do is add in a disclaimer. So I'm going to type in, what do I usually put? It's something about, oh yeah, this gift card cannot be redeemed for cash or used to purchase other gift cards. 1 gift card per customer per purchase. And now that you see that my text has gone hidden in that text box, it's still there. All I have to do is make that text box a little bit bigger, and I'm going to put a period at the end of that sentence. I'm going to select all that text, and I'm going to go into my paragraph. So if you don't have that open, go to, I believe it's under type tool, to paragraph, and that will open our paragraph panel, editing panel. I actually already have that open, so I'm going to click on that to activate it and select Align Center. Then I'm going to change my font, and I'm going to open up my character panel. Again, that's under the type tool to character. I'm going to click on my character panel, and I'm going to change my font to Avener. If you don't have Avener on your computer, this is a sans serif font. It's this font right here. You can substitute it with Arial, Helvetica, or even Open Sans, which is a free font. So you can find that on Google. Just Google Open Sans, and I would download all the versions of it, light all the way to extra bold, because you'll need those for all of my templates. I'm using that one more often in more of my new templates, but it's a great substitute for Avener, and you don't have to, you can get that one for free, so save a little bit of money. So I'm going to select my font that goes with my branding. I'm going to select Avener, and actually I'm going to select the Avener Next Condensed. I like that one when it comes to disclaimers, because it allows me to fit in more text in a small area, because I have to make, I don't really have a lot of room, and I have to make this font no smaller than 8-point type. Anything smaller than that makes it really difficult for people to read. So if I select the Avener Next Condensed, and maybe select even medium, so that it's a little bit more easier to read, and then I'm going to italicize it. It's pretty standard to italicize any sort of disclaimers. If you look at like the the small text on any sort of document, you'll see the disclaimer there. It's usually in italicized or really small text or font size. And I'm going to drop down this word other to gift card to kind of balance out my lines of text. I don't like them to be one really long line of text and a couple of words underneath it. I like to give it a nice balance. And then I've noticed I've made a little typo right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit, Spelling, and I'm going to click on the check spelling, so that we can go through our document and make sure that we don't have anything that's misspelled. Other, it's just telling me to capitalize that, which I don't need. I don't know why it tells me to do that. I don't have a period before there, but maybe it's because I hit the return key. I'm going to click skip on that one, and then it's suggesting that I change customer, so I'm going to select that and click change, and everything else is fine, so I'm going to click done. Alright, so now that I've changed that, I'm going to select this text again, and you can change the color of this. Because I have it printed in, right now it's in black ink that I've selected for that text, but by default But because this is not going on the gold foil layer, it won't print in gold foil. And because this text is so small, I would absolutely suggest that you do not put it in gold foil, because Moo will definitely flag that as being too small to put into gold foil. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this onto its own layer, but I want to make a couple of little adjustments first. I'm going to select that text with my type tool and go into my swatches. And if you don't have the swatch panel open, you can find it under the window menu, I believe, to color, and then click on swatches, and that's F5 on your keyboard shortcut. And I'm going to actually make this gray because it kind of matches my branding here. So I'm going to select 50% gray, and that just takes it to a different color. And I'm going to move my text box so that it's up here with the within that safe area. And I'm going to create a new file. So I'm going into my Pages panel, and I'm going to click on the Options button, and that's right here on the top right hand corner. It has these little 4 lines in it. Click on that button and click on Insert Page. And I'm going to insert one page after page 1. Click OK. And it's going to put that in my Pages panel, a blank page right under page 1. I'm going to double click on page 1 again. With my Move tool, I'm going to select that text box and go to Edit to Cut. Actually, the reason I did this on this page in the first place is because I want to make sure that it's going to be placed right under my contact information. So now that I know that it is, I can kind of arrange all of my content on this page to make sure that it's printing where I want it to be. So I can actually move my contact information down just a little bit before I cut this out here and put it onto its own page, so that I have everything in place. I'm just making my logo just a little bit bigger, holding down that Shift key. Now I'm going to select that disclaimer, and I'm going to go to Edit to Cut. Oops, I had the wrong thing selected. I'm just going to select just the disclaimer and go to Edit to Cut. And you hit Command X on your keyboard if you want to do the keyboard shortcut. I'm going to double click on page 2 and go to Edit to Paste. And now we're going to move our disclaimer exactly to the same spot where we had it on page 1. So when we go to print, the disclaimer will print on the design layer where it's printing in ink, and then this will be placed onto the gold foil layer where it's going to print in gold foil on top of the ink panel. You also want to make sure that your logo is in black ink. So I'm going to go into my swatch panels and select my logo and make sure I select black as the fill. I don't want it to be an outline, so I'm going to, that's where right here where you could swap it from outline to fill. I want to make sure that fill is selected and it's in the foreground, and I'm going to select the black. So that indicates that anything I want in gold foil will be in black artwork on that layer. So this is something that Moo requires you to do. Make sure you are changing the contact information and putting in your website and telephone number. You don't need the www dot. I just keep it in there because some people like it, but you can take it out. I always do. Okay, and then make sure you're changing your phone number. Okay, and then we're going to go into, let's save our progress. So when you open up this template, it's most likely, if you're using the most recent version of InDesign, it opens up the template as an untitled document, so that which is a great thing because it keeps the downloaded version of it, the original template, there on your computer or wherever it is you save that, so that you can always go back to the original version if you needed to. But I like to save a working copy of any of the changes I'm making, so I make sure that I rename it differently than what the template name is. So I'm going to go to File to Save As, and I have a folder on my desktop for gold gift cards, and change Untitled to, I'm going to use my initials, SLP, which is Shauna Lofy Portraits, gold foil gift cards. You can name it whatever you want, but this is just what I'm going to call my working copy. It's a format for Adobe InDesign, and I'm using CC 2018, and I'm going to click Save. So now I have a working copy, and I can go back to it whenever I want to make any edits to my working copy of my template. So now I'm going to go into page 3, and I have different options in here for you which you can change. These are just the denominations I used to start off with. I have options for $100 gift cards. So if somebody wants to put this on their Christmas list, for instance, and they want to get they tell everybody, buy me a $100 gift card. You can buy me a $100 gift card with Shauna Lofy portraits, and they maybe get 10 friends to do that, and then they have $1,000 worth of gift cards which they can use to buy portraits with you. So that's the one reason why you have the $100, or maybe even a smaller amount. You can maybe even drop it down to $25 if you wanted to, so that you have that option for people to buy smaller amounts of gift cards for people for like their birthday, their anniversary, Christmas, whatever. It's just like when you go to Target and you buy little gift cards there. You may not be able to buy the entire purchase, but at least it helps with some of it. And then I have denominations for $250, $500, which is my most popular one that I use for giveaways at networking events or charity events. And then they have $1,000, and I'm not sure. I think I might have. Well, I was previously editing this one. I left out the 0, but on the template it's on here as $1,000, and I always have a comma in there. Okay, so you have your $1,000 template. And then I have the reverse versions of the cards too. So this would be if you wanted a solid color background with a gold text instead. This is great for the Photoshop version of this template, but still you may run into some minor issues with the text because it doesn't allow you to do these little tips that I'm going to show you here pretty soon on doing this text. But I know that I made Photoshop versions of the solid gold, and that's only because people requested it. But like I've always said from the very beginning, this is an advanced template, and you really should be using Adobe InDesign for this template because you're going to get the best results when you're printing. So you're using Photoshop at your peril for this particular template, but you can use it for any other of my templates. It's just this one is a lot more advanced, and I really, really hope that you take my advice and use this program because it's really amazing program to use. Alright, so I have versions of the reversed gold text, and you can change these and edit them to whatever amount you want. I have actually started creating gift cards specifically for my folio packages. So I actually will change this one to $3,000, and they can buy the highest package with this gift card. So if somebody wanted to buy this for them for Christmas for their wife, they can, purchase a gift card for $3,000, and then their wife can come in with that gift card and buy the top folio package from me. And when you get to those higher amounts, I actually comp the hair and makeup if it's for one person. If they know they're going to have multiple people, you can actually have cards that are designed for, like the like $190 if that's your sitting fee, or whatever your makeup and hair is, and make the denomination for your hair and makeup exactly that amount, so people can buy extras if they wanted to cover the hair and makeup costs as well, or you can just have them pay that as a separate fee. It's entirely up to you and how you run your photo studio. So you can go for $3,000, $2,000 for the next one, and then of course when you're going to have to edit that text, I'm opening up my character panel and I'm going to change the kerning. And the kerning is the space in between letters or numbers, and I'm going to set that at 0, and that's going to reset our text and give us a little bit more space. And I noticed my column is just a little too far away, so I'm just going to give it less space there and fix the space between the zeros. So I'm only selecting zeros, and I'm going to put no kerning through that. So you can make it 2,000 or you can make it 1,200. So just whatever it is that you have your packages set at, you can make customize your gift cards so that they are specific to your folio packages, or even to your wall portraits if you want to set them up that way as well. Okay, so going back into the solid gold template, the area where people are having the most issues with this font is in this line of text right here to use towards a makeover and print collections. And also the S is optional. I know that American English, they use toward as the option as the correct grammar for that. And what I'm doing is selecting this, and I'm getting the glyphs that come up automatically. So I don't want this kind of a strange looking D. I'd rather just have the standard D on that font. So if you want to put it toward a purchase of prints, or if you're proper British English, you can use the S. And you can refer to Oh Woe Is I is a book that I used when I was in school, and it has a lot of little tips in there on what's the proper grammar for different words. Some of those things are confusing. I'm not a copywriter, I'm a graphic designer, so this is not my area of expertise, and I often have to refer to that book to make sure that I'm using proper grammar. So again, you can edit that as you will. If you're selecting, if you're going to edit this line of text, this is the little trick that I add to it. I'm using my type tool to select this text, and I'm opening up my stroke panel, and in the template I have it set at 0.25 as a stroke, but I actually would go up to 0.75, and it really just depends on whether or not you're using this font or if you're customizing this to change the fonts on the template. But for this particular font, I find that 0.75 is really the best option for that, to make that font a lot thicker so that the gold foil transfers really, really clean on here. Right now it looks a little sketchy, like this is going to be too fat, but bear with me. We still have to convert this to outlines, and it's actually going to make this a little thinner. So that's why I go up to 0.75, and you can even go up to 0.25 if you wanted to. On this font, I actually would not add the stroke. I'd actually go and buy the bolder version of this font and change it either to black or even to heavy. No, black is actually the best for this one in Invenar. And if you're changing your font to Open Sans, I would then go and use either extra bold or bold. The bolder the better, because this will be a clean transfer when it's going to print in Mu to get that nice crisp letters that they're looking for. And with the rest of it, this one, you don't have to add an outline to the larger version of the script font because it's so big. This is giving us enough of a clean line that it will transfer really, really well. Okay. Another option, if you do not want to use a VNAR or really any of these fonts, you can change all of the fonts on the document simultaneously. So we're going to go into the, actually I'm going to save my progress here, so hit Command S to save that. And I'm going to go into the type tool and go to Find Font. This is going to open up a dialog box where we can change it shows all the fonts that we have in our document, and this is where we could change them. So anything that's a VNAR black, this is a sans serif font, and this is the one I suggest where you can change it to either Arial, Helvetica, or Open Sans, which is a free font that you can find on Google. And Open Sans is being used a lot in many of my templates, so having that is a great option for you. So we're going to go into Find a Font Family, and I'm going to change that to Open Sans. Okay, and Open Sans, we're going to choose bold because we're replacing the black version, which is a bolder version of that font. And I'm going to click on Find First, and it's going to select the first template that has that font in there. And I'm going to click on Change All. So it's going to change it on every single one of my documents. And it's going to be difficult to notice because they're so similar in look. But then if you click on each one of the Avinars, you can change it to its complement in either Arial or Helvetica through this particular dialog box. And all you have to do is go through all of them and change it. You can do the same thing with the script fonts. If you don't want to use Bicam Script Pro, you can use any font that's on your computer that's a script font. But again, make sure that it's a font that has, you know, a good thickness to it, especially when it comes to this line of text as well. And then you can also match your fonts that you currently use on your branding. And if they're thin fonts, then use this tip to add a stroke to the text so that it prints nice and thick. So once you've changed all your fonts, just click on Done. And that is the easiest way to change fonts on a document in Adobe InDesign. And when you're using the magazine template, this particular feature comes in handy because when you're in Photoshop, you have to select each line or each paragraph of text and change it manually. button here, it'll change the fonts on the entire document just through that dialog box, which saves you lots and lots of time. I'm going to hit Command Z to go back to using a VNR for that particular line. And now, once you've made all of your changes, if you go through all of the templates and you've made the, the corrections or the edits to the amount that you want and to all of your fonts in your text, we're going to hit Save to save our progress, and I'm going to select all of this text. So I'm going to drag my Move tool across to select it, or you can hit Command A on your keyboard to select all that text, or go to Object, Edit, it's been a while since I've done this. I think it's, where is the Select All, under Object, or, Oh, there it is. Under Edit is Select All. I'm sorry, I've used keyboard shortcuts for so long, I literally will forget where these things are under the menu, so please forgive my ignorance there, but it is under the Edit menu for Select All, Command A. So if you select that, it's going to select all of the text on this file only. So on this particular page, you'd have to select on each page in order to select all, but it won't multi-select across all pages. It only will select all on the page that you have selected in your Pages panel right now. So what we're going to have to do is convert all of these fonts, all this text to outlines, so that when we save it, export as a PDF, Moo won't cite that PDF is looking for their fonts because they may not have these fonts in their system. So when we convert it to outline, it's taking those fonts and turning them into objects, so you actually don't need the fonts anymore to open up that file. So once we have Select All, we're going to go to Type to create outlines, and that's Command Shift O on your keyboard shortcut as well. So one side is converted to outlines. Now you can export it and export that page and upload it to Moo. But we also need to do that to our front file. Our page 1, which is the front of our which is the front of our card. And we also need to convert outlines to our disclaimer as well. So it's Command A, Command Shift O, or go to Type to create outlines. Another thing that I like to do, and I'm going to hit Command Z to bring those outlines, to bring the font back from outlines. I like to add another little design element to my design layer on my cards, because my cards have, and I'm going to open up the preview so I can show you. If you can see it on here, oh, I don't have the front of my card open, but here's a version to show you what the cards look like when they're printed. You can see here that, oops, but you can see here that when I printed it, there was a little bit of those lines that are kind of disappearing. And this is before I had, this is I think the first time I printed it, so I hadn't really experimented with it yet. But when I showed it to people, they never noticed it. And even I didn't really pay much attention to it either, because I needed them last minute for something. I just, I used it this way and nobody ever noticed it. It's really just, after printing for 20 years, my expectations are kind of low, because I know that, printing isn't an exact science and you're going to have some trial and error. And with me, I have an acceptable level of error that I will tolerate, because this is, to me, this is acceptable. It is totally fine. These are the kind of things I kind of just let go. Same with all of my other printing. If it comes back a little dark, that's why I only print one version of my magazine. I'll go back and edit the pages that need to be edited, and then go in and print another one to make sure everything looks good. And the same thing with my cards. Their minimum order is 50, so, and I think that's going to be like, I know it's under like $40 to get those printed. So if you can afford to kind of throw away a set of cards just to make sure that they look good before you order your full set, go ahead and do that. But some of the tips that I'm giving you should ensure that the first run is going to look really, really good. But again, if you get it flagged from Moo saying that there's going to be some problems with your text, just take a chance and see what it looks like. If you're following through my directions, it should be okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to select my damask background. So I'm just going to click on, and this is a vector artwork right here. So I'm going to zoom in on it so you can see it. You see all those blue lines? That's what the vector is. It's all of these little objects that are drawn together into a beautiful little design. And I bought this damask pattern on iStockphoto.com. And they have all sorts of beautiful patterns. So they have different things you can choose from, so you can really make your cards look very beautiful, or masculine, depending on how you want your cards to look and what looks good with your branding. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to hit Edit to copy, and I'm going to go back into InDesign. And on my design layer, which is page 2, where my disclaimer is where I'm going to place this artwork. So I'm going to go to Edit to Paste, because I don't want this to be in gold foil. What I want it to do is to be in a gold color, which goes well with my branding. I use gold 872 metallic if I'm printing in metallic, but if I'm using the Pantone metallic ink in InDesign, it's just giving me a gold color look, but not in metallic. And then I also use like an 85% black, or to make it look kind of gray, white, and cream. Those are my branding colors, and I use it consistently throughout all of my marketing. So I'm bringing in this damask pattern, and I'm holding down my shift key, and I'm pulling it down to the edge of this safe area, and I'm going to pull to the edges of the left and right because I want it to fill the entire background. So once I've done that, I'm going to select it and hit Command X or Edit to cut. And then I'm going to go into my Tools panel and select the Rectangle Frame tool, which is the square with the X through it. And I'm going to drag my cursor until I see my little crosshairs, and I'm going to position that right at the top left of the bleed and drag it all the way across to the, around this red outline, which is our bleed area. And it's going to create a rectangle frame tool. And I'm going to go to Edit to Paste into, and it's going to take my damask pattern and put it inside its own box. And it's going to keep it within the parameters of my document. So I'm going to select that graphic frame tool and go to Object, Arrange, Send it to Back. So now it's going to be behind my text layer. But I also want to screen back a version of it because I don't want 100% color, otherwise I can't see my disclaimer here. So I'm going to select with the selection tool, click on that graphic frame that has my damask pattern, go to Object, Select, Content. And then I need to open up my effects panel. So go to Window, to Effects, and I'm going to lower the opacity of this to 10%. 10% is going to give us a nice little ghosting effect of that damask pattern. So once I've changed it to 10%, it's just going to be 10% of that 10% tint or 10% opacity of that solid color background. So now I can read my disclaimer over that damask pattern. So when it goes to print and I have the gold foil layer is going to print on top of this ink layer. And I'll show you once we get to that part of the tutorial where I show you how to upload it to Moo. So now I've created another file with a disclaimer and a background for my for the front of my card. If you wanted to have also not just the solid gold version of the template, you can also do a gold text with a solid background. Now all we need to do is create another file so that we can have a solid color in it. So go into your Pages panel and click on the Options button, which is the 4 little lines at the top right hand corner. Click Insert Page, and we're going to put one page after page, we can do after page 10 because that's at the end of all of our text over our reverse text templates. So I'm going to click on after page 10 and click OK. And in my Pages panel, it's going to show up right here as a blank page. And I am going to go into my Tools panel and I'm going to select the rectangle tool. I don't need the frame tool because I'm not putting anything inside of it like we did with the damask. This is just going to be its own solid color. So I'm going to click on that, and in the same spot I'm going to click and drag across just into the bleed area. And by default it's going to give me a solid black with a black outline. The fill should be in the foreground. That's going to fill the entire thing with black, but we don't need the black outline. That's unnecessary. So I'm clicking on the stroke to bring it in the foreground, and I'm going to click on apply none to X that out so we don't need an outline on that. And then I'm going to bring back the black to the fill of black to the foreground. And I'm going to use my zoom tool so I can zoom in on this corner right here and make sure that my my fill box goes all the way to the edge of that bleed area. So I'm going to click on my move tool, and I'm just going to extend it to the edge of the bleed area. I'm going to zoom out, so I'm hitting Command 0 to zoom out, Command minus to zoom out again. And then I'm holding down my Command and space bar to zoom in, or you can click on the zoom tool. But I like keyboard shortcuts, so Command space bar on your keyboard shortcut for your Mac. Click on the move tool and click and drag excuse me, and click and drag your rectangle frame all the way to the edge of that bleed. Command 0 to zoom back out, Command minus to zoom out again. And now we can change the color of our background. If your brand is having, you know, black and gold, this would be, you know, look absolutely gorgeous. I have an example somewhere on the Facebook group, and I think it's under my mentor file, and I show you a version of it with a gray background and a black background and a red background. But this is where you could change it to anything. So open up your swatch panels, and if you don't have it open, it's under Window to Color to Swatches, and this is where you can add a color to it. So if you can change it to keep it in black, or you can change it to gray, or you can add in any color you want. If you have a Pantone color that you use for your branding, you can add it here. So in the Swatches panel, click on the options, and again, that's that little 4-lined button. Click on New Swatch, and that's going to open a dialog box where we can then go to color mode, click on that drop-down menu, and look for the Pantone Solid Uncoated. And if you know the number of your Pantone color that you use, you can click on this little box and just type it in manually. I use 872, but I don't want to put a gold color on top of a gold foil. It's just not going to look very good. I need something with a little more contrast. So I would actually pick gray as my background color, or even black, but I think gray would actually be a better complement, or even cream for my background. But let's just pick something a little more bold so you can actually see the difference here. I'm going to go for maybe this gorgeous blue color right here. And then I'm going to select that and click Add. And that's going to add that Pantone color to our swatch panel. And if you have another color option you want to use, that's great. Just kind of scroll through your Pantone colors and pick a Pantone color there, and click Add. And then once you have all of the colors you want, just click Done, and it opens up the CC libraries, and I'm not really sure why or how to turn that off because I just uploaded this new version of Adobe InDesign. I haven't figured out all the little quirks that it has, so I'm just going to close that out. So now that we have a solid color selected for our background for that layer, I'm going to go ahead and save my progress. Alright, and say we've gone through all of our templates and made all of our edits through all of these options here. Now I'm going to click on page 1, and I'm going to make sure I select all of my text and convert it to outline. So I'm hitting Command A, Command Shift O, and again you can do it at type to create outlines, and I'll do the same thing. I'm going to go into layer 2, select that text, and convert it to outlines. So I'm going to type to create outlines, and I'm going to go into all of my files here, all of my templates, the ones that I have edited. So make sure that you have increased the stroke outline here, and made sure that you're using bold versions of those fonts. Hit Command A to select all the text, go to type to create outlines. And once I created those outlines, you'll see that that bold font went a little bit smaller, or sorry, it became a little bit more thinner, but it's still thick enough that it's going to give us a nice clean transfer from that gold foil. And you can do the same thing with the font here. Increase the size of this on the reversed version of it as well, opening that stroke, making it 0.75, making sure that our sans serif text is bold or black. And we don't need an outline on that since we're making it a bolder font. And then we're going to select all and then go to type to convert to outline. Okay, once we've done all that, now we just need to export all of our pages. So we're going to go into page 1, go to File, to Export, and this is going to open up a export dialog box, and we're going to want to save each file by what they are. So this is going to be gold foil gift card, and this is going to be my front logo, and the format should be Adobe PDF print, not JPEG. I know there's an option for JPEG on here. That defeats the entire purpose of why we're doing this in InDesign. We need to keep this as a vector file, so you have to save it as a PDF. Okay, and then click Save. And make sure your compatibility, okay, that's going to open up another dialog box, so we're going to have to do a few more steps. Under compatibility, make sure it's at the highest of 8, mine's 8.9 or 8 to 9. And then on our marks and bleeds, make sure we're selecting use document bleed settings. Under output, go to the ink manager and make sure all spots are to process. This is because I use the Pantone 872 as my ink selection for my branding, so my damask is going to be in that 872. By converting it to all process, it's now telling InDesign to export it as CMYK rather than as my Pantone color, because I don't want it to print in metallic and I don't want it to confuse moves. So I'm making sure that all of my Pantone colors are now processed, 4-color process. And I'm going to click OK. And going back into General and making sure that I'm selecting the specific page I want to export. So I click on Range and I'm going to select page 1, and I'm going to select it in not spreads but pages, single pages, and then we're going to go to Export. And you should have saved it into your folder with your gold foil gift cards. My preferences for Adobe InDesign, when I export as a PDF, opens it up automatically in Adobe Acrobat to just show me what it looks like. So I'm just getting a preview of the PDF, and I'm going to hit Quit because I don't need that open right now. Then I'm going to go into Adobe InDesign, select the next page, which is our design layer with our disclaimer and our beautiful graphic behind that layer. And I'm going to go to File, to Export. And we're going to follow the same instructions that we just did for the front of the card, but I'm going to rename it and call it Disclaimer. And make sure the format is Adobe PDF Print, and click Save. Compatibility, once we've already set all this stuff, will continue on with all of our documents, but I always will double check to make sure that everything is still the same. So I want to change the range to page 2. It's still in pages. We only are using document bleeds, not crop marks, and our output for our ink manager should be all spots to process. Once everything is complete, click Export, and now it's going to export only page 2. And again, it's going to open up an Acrobat for me to show me what it looks like. I quit out of that, and then I'm going to go into back into InDesign, click on page 3, and go to File, to Export. And I'm going to call this $100. So I'm just going to rename it whatever the denomination is for that card to keep them all separate. File format again is Adobe PDF Print, and click Save. And again, everything will be the same, only I need to change the range to page 3 because I'm exporting page 3 only, and I know that everything else is going to be the same, so I'm clicking Export. And quitting out of that, going back into InDesign, and I've gone through all these pages, and I'm going to go to the reverse page and go to File, to Export, and I'm going to call this 100 gold text. again, file format should be Adobe PDF print, and click Save. And now this is going to be page 7, and again everything else is the same, and click Export. Once you've gone through all of your pages, now we can go into Moo, and I'll show you how to upload that. And if you're using any of the other templates, you can follow the same instructions for all of them, but I'm actually going to make videos for each one of the gold foil templates, so it'll show you what those fonts look like when I'm making edits to them.